You know, there's one X team I always forget about, and that would be Generation X. I don't know why. Like, I truly remember Excalibur, X Factor, X Force, X-Men, even the Exiles, and they came years later when it came to Generation X. But for some strange reason, I forget about this team. Now, technically, we have to cover them because they're part of our X-Men coverage. And honestly, they're not a bad team. They're a pretty cool young team to follow. And so today's video, we're going to cover Generation X issue numbers 5, 6, and 7, a 3-part story arc where we're kind of seeing the young heroes getting involved in the whole idea of Gene Nation. We had briefly talked about Gene Nation before in our earlier X-Men videos. It's the whole idea that we have a new group out there that's trying to kill off humans, but as they're doing that, they're kind of giving mutants a bad name. But also, they have some kind of connection with Dark Beast and the Morlocks. So as we go through our X-Men coverage, we are slowly learning more and more about this Gene Nation. But now it's time for Generation X to get involved in their schemes. But something else I do want to mention is that when it came to Generation X, it only had 4 issues and then it had to stop. And the reason why, because Age of Apocalypse. All the different X books had to stop for a short period of time to allow that event to be told to us. And once that event was done, you then had all books being able to resume where they had left off at. And so now for Generation X, they now pick up with issue number 5. And the opening pages of this book, we see Chambers in the basement of the boys' dorm room. Now, for Chambers, it's really more of him just want to be left alone. In the boys' dorm room basement, he had put a TV down there, a couch down there, basically a sign saying do not disturb. Like, he wants to be left alone, because for Chambers at this point in time in Marvel Comics, he hasn't really been able to build bonds with other characters just yet. And so technically he's on his own. Now you do have Gateway arrive as well. Now for Gateway, he is a very powerful mutant with the ability to teleport almost anywhere. Now for Gateway, he also does not speak at all. And so the only way to talk to him is, well, having your mind connect to his mind. And luckily for Chambers, he can do that, because when it came to Chambers, when his powers had manifested, a huge amount of psychic energy just blew out of his body, and it blew off his chest and the lower part of his face. Now, with that being said, he's now unable to eat, drink, but also not sleep as well, because his body no longer needs those things. But for him to talk, he has to use his mind, like Jean Grey, Charles Xavier, Psylocke. And so for Chambers, he's then able to talk to Gateway by using his mind. But you have Gateway tell Chambers you need to check on Paige Guthrie, better known as Husk, because of the legacy virus. So at first, we're kind of left to believe here that possibly Paige might have the legacy virus. Now, as we transition over to New York City, we're kind of picking up with Jubilee. And you have Jubilee right now trying to buy an apple. And the reason why for Penance, because for Penance, ever since she had arrived at the school, no one has truthfully been able to talk to her except for Chambers. And that technically only lasts for like 1 or 2 issues. And that's really it. And so they're right now trying to find a way to have her open up to finally be able to communicate. And so for Jubilee, she believes this apple could possibly help. The problem is that you have Ben Grimm run by her. And the reason why, because you have a crowd of people wanting his autograph. And so that crowd of people, they run over Jubilee, but also smash the apple that she had just bought. But either way, we do see 4 students of the Generation X team on their way over to Emma Frost's office at her company's building. The problem is that out of nowhere, you have Monet to stop moving. And so for Skin, Sync, and Jubilee, they're unable to move her because with her powers, it makes her invulnerable. And so they have a hard time pushing her and kind of wondering what to do with her because she's not talking, she's not moving. It's kind of strange. Paige. But then out of nowhere, you have this random guy appear. Now, apparently, this random guy knows Skin very well from his previous life. And he also tells us that him and a few other people back in LA, they believe that Skin had possibly died because he had just randomly disappeared. No one knew what exactly happened to him. Now, for Skin, he wants to have a one-on-one conversation with the guy. And the thing is Skin saying, listen, you cannot tell anybody that we both know that I'm still alive because I don't want anybody to know that I'm still alive. But if you decide to tell anybody, just know I will use my powers on you and you're going to hate that very much. And so we're kind of left to wonder, what was Skin up to in his previous life before he had joined the team? Now, back at the new school for Charles Xavier, you have Banshee, one of the two instructors of the school, trying his best to get Penance to open up to him. Because again, ever since she had arrived, unfortunately, nobody except for Chambers has been really able to communicate with her. And so right now, it's Banshee kind of wondering, maybe it's a language barrier. And so for Banshee, he has been trying to read different books on different languages to kind of see what language she actually speaks. Now, he does stop for the day. He goes inside the kitchen, and when he does, he realized that she had followed him, but also she wants an apple. And for me personally, it kind of shows that piece by piece, by day, is her opening up to almost every single person at the school. But right now, starting off with Banshee for today. Now, getting back over to the students who are making their way over to Emma Frost's company building, we do learn here that they had left Monet behind in the middle of the city, just like that, to move on with their day. And also, you had Emma Frost basically send a driver to pick them up, and that driver did pick them up and delivered them over to the company's building. The problem is that as soon as they entered the garage, there was a loud boom sound. Now, for our young heroes, they get out of the vehicle to realize the front of the vehicle has been completely crushed. The driver is also dead. It gets even worse because also there were a bunch of bodyguards in that one particular part of the building. They're all dead, but also pinned to the wall. Now, for our young heroes, they realize something is going on here in the building and Emma might need their help. But you didn't have Frost contact the young kids and say, do not come up here at all. Matter of fact, go get help. Call the X-Men now. But of course, for our young heroes, they're gonna do the exact opposite. Now, we do learn what's going on with Paige Guthrie, better known as Husk. It's the whole idea that no, she does not have the legacy virus. It's more of she's scared of the legacy virus. You see, thanks to Trish Tilby telling the entire world about the legacy virus, you now have everyone kind of freaking out, especially mutants, because they heard this virus kills off mutants just like that, left and right. It is also now going after humans as well. And so for Paige, it's really more of her, one, being drunk right now, but two, also kind of expressing that she does not see the purpose of life anymore, because now you are talking of the possibility of dying from a virus. So why in the world should she try to study? Why in the world should she be an X-Men? Like, what is the purpose of life? And so for Chamber, it's him right now kind of like, man, I don't want to get involved. But at the same time, he realized she needs somebody in her corner at the moment. Now, for the students who are trying their best to save their teacher, Emma Frost, while they're in the elevator going up, out of nowhere, they're then confronted by a character known as Hemingway. Now, for Hemingway, he's technically part of Gene Nation. Now, by this point in our coverage over the X-Men, we have no idea what Gene Nation truly is. All we know is that it's some kind of spin-off from the Morlocks. And they look at the Morlocks as their ancestors, but also they're being led by Dark Beast, a character from the Age of Apocalypse timeline. Now, with all that being said, for Gene Nation, they came here for one particular mutant, really two, Emma Frost and another character known as Leech. And we know Leech very well from the early days of X Factor. But either way, you do have our young heroes being able to use their powers on Hemingway to send him away for the time being. But right after doing that, you have our heroes turn around and realize there is a child in that room with them, and that would be Artie. Now, we have not seen Artie in a very long time. Like, I want to say at the tail end of New Mutants leading into X-Force. When it comes to Artie, he is a mutant that cannot communicate normally. Instead, he has to use psychic images as a way to talk to other people. And so right now is him trying to communicate to our young heroes. But apparently he saw some messed up things before coming here, but we have no idea what he's trying to tell our young heroes. Either way, they still have a mission, and that mission right now is to save Emma Frost. Now, as we jump into issue number 6, we're kind of getting into some more information about Gene Nation, because when it comes to Hemingway, he's with Mero, the actual leader of the nation, who's right now having Emma Frost as their prisoner. Now, things get a tad bit crazier because you have Marrow say that her and her crew, they came from a different dimension. But let's not forget that technically they are a spinoff of the Morlocks. Now, the reason why they are here in New York is not just for Emma Frost. It's also because of Leech. Now, Leech was a Morlock. He was there on the day most of the Morlocks were massacred, thanks to the Mutant Massacre storyline, where you had the Marauders go down there to kill off a huge chunk of the mutants in there. And so Leech was able to get away, but he hid. Now for Leech, here's the thing about him. He has the ability to cancel out other people's powers. And so right now for Emma Frost, she can't use her powers at the moment to fight against both Hemingway and also Mero. But the reason why they're going after Leech is because Leech hid. He did not help the fellow Morlocks to fight against the Marauders when they were being massacred. But luckily for Emma Frost, her students are trying their best to make their way over to her. And so you have Sync being able to use his powers as a way to track down other mutants nearby. And so for him, he's trying his best to track down Hemingway or possibly Emma Frost or anybody else in that building. Now for Skin, he's with Artie. And we kind of see that Skin does not like his at all, but for Artie, he's really attached to Skin. But either way, you have our young heroes trying their best to make it over to their teacher. Now, back at the school, you still have Chambers trying to be that good guy, taking care of Paige, even though Paige is, currently drunk. And so while you have Chambers trying to help her back into her room, we kind of see the two characters getting close to one another, to the point where you have Paige wanting to kiss Chambers. And this is going to lead into the ending of this chapter. And you're going to be surprised what actually happens when Paige tries to kiss him. But as we transition back over to Emma Frost, you have Emma Frost ask Mero, like, hey, listen, why did you guys kill off that group of humans back in that building? Now, we saw that in an earlier storyline over in Uncanny X-Men and X-Men, where you had Archangel find a bunch of dead bodies. There were people who lost their souls to a character known as Vessel. Now, the reason why to Mero, because they were humans, but also because they were still able to party and dance in the sunlight, unlike her ancestors, of course, talking about the Morlocks once again. Now, for our heroes, they're trying to figure out how in the world are they going to be able to save Emma Frost, because technically they can't at the moment, because with them now being in that room with Leech, their powers have also been canceled out as well. And so technically they're sitting ducks at the moment. But this kind of shows why Emma Frost is such a cool character, but also like why she's a teacher and they are the students. Because for Emma Frost, she lets Marrow and also Hemingway continue to talk about, why they are here. They're here to kill off humans because humans did bad things to their ancestors, but also they came here to kill off Leech because Leech was one of the few mutants who was a Morlock who did not help out other Morlocks when it came to the Mutant Massacre. But the thing is, while they are talking, you have Emma Frost. It's so messed up, but you have Emma Frost just knock Leech out by kicking him right in the face. But with Leech being knocked out, it now allows her to use her powers. She's able to be free. She's able to take down both Mero and Hemingway just like that in a matter of seconds. Now, you have the students walk into the room kind of like, okay, cool, I guess the day is saved. Now, the question is, what do we do with them? Now, of course, you have some kids say, you know what, go ahead and hand them over to the police. But you have skin to realize for Emma Frost, she has a different plan in mind, especially because she wants some payback for what they did to her, but also because what they did to security guards earlier in the storyline. Now, we kind of find out that Dark Beast is watching our heroes. And for Dark Beast, he kind of realized that he does not want to figure out who he is just yet or what the whole idea of Gene Nation is about. And so you have Dark Beast go out of his way to kind of blow up the building to hopefully kill off Emma Frost and her students, but to also kind of allow Marrow Hemingway to get away. Now, luckily for our heroes, they were able to, get away from the explosion before they were killed off. Now, at the very last second, you do have Monet reappear, and you have Monet kind of help out with the rescue and allow our heroes and Emma Frost to escape. But for Marrow and Hemingway, they also got away as well. But we're also kind of left to wonder, like, what's going on with Monet, because this is now the second time where she just froze in place, not being able to move nor speak. But either way, you didn't have our heroes leave. Now, you do have our heroes head over to the school of Charles Xavier, the one in Westchester. Now, when they arrive, it's really more of Emma Frost expressing how concerned she is about Gene Nation, how the X-Men, X-Force, all the different X-teams should be really scared about the idea of Gene Nation, because we have no idea what their end goal truly is just yet, especially with Dark Beast being around. Now, we do lead into my favorite moment of the storyline, because you now have Jubilee being able to see Wolverine, because when he came to Wolverine, he left the X-Men right after you had Fatal Attractions happen, where the adamantium was ripped off his bones by Magneto. And so when that happened, he left the X-Men for a short period of time. But when he came back, she left the X-Men and went to go join Generation X as a way to learn more about her abilities. And so when it came to Wolverine, when he came home, she wasn't there. This is the first time these two characters are able to talk to one another. And when they do, it's beautiful because they have that father and daughter-like bond with one another. And I know for a lot of fans out there, he has that bond with Kitty Pryde as well, and I guess Rogue as well. But for me personally, I feel like Jubilee and Wolverine truly do have that father and daughter bond. Kitty Pryde too, yes, but for me it feels like Jubilee is like a daughter to him for real. And also, in later books down the road, we get more examples of that. And so you have Logan tell her that he's proud of her like a father because of, her wanting to learn more about her abilities, to be able to use her abilities better to help out the teams down the road. But his chapter does end on one heck of a cliffhanger, because you do have just Banshee walking around the school and he realized there's something going on with Gateway. But then out of nowhere, there is an explosion that happens at the school. Matter of fact, in the room where Husk and Chambers were at earlier. Now, as we transition into the 7th issue, we're kind of skipping forward in time a little bit, like a couple of days after the ending of the 6th issue. And don't worry, we're going to learn more about what exactly happened at the end of the last issue. But for right now, we're going to jump forward to the 7th one. And so we pick up with Banshee just having a nightmare. Now, with this nightmare is him kind of reliving a moment where he was supposed to save a young woman's life. But apparently he could not do that. But also there was somebody else there who's technically the killer of that woman. And we have no idea who this person could truly be. Now, you do have Banshee go out of his way to shoot the man. But after doing that, you didn't have Emma Frost appear in his dream. And she's trying her best to wake him up for a very good reason. Because we learn here that Emma Frost and Banshee are currently living together. And here's the reason why, because at the end of our last chapter, with that explosion, it happened in the girls' dorms. And so their dorms right now are being fixed up. And so unfortunately for Emma Frost, she had to give up her home to the girls stay in for the time being, but she moved in with Banshee. And so right now the two of them are living together, but with them being so close to one another, when it comes to Banshee, with his dreams, it pulled her into his dreams because she is a psychic. Now, you also have Emma kind of ask Banshee like, hey, listen, is there something you want to talk about? And he says no. And so for her, she kind of moves on. But she also gives him a small glimpse of her, body with no clothes on. But now we can kind of see what's going on with Chambers. We do learn that the reason why the explosion happened earlier is because, well, you had Paige, Husk, try to kiss him. And so he kind of freaked out and his powers, went off and caused an explosion. Now, he's very upset because he should know how to control his powers better than that, but also because he could have hurt Husk as well. But luckily for Husk, she had used her abilities as a way to protect herself from the blast. And so he's very upset about the idea that he could have killed somebody. But also we learn here that he had covered for Husk. He didn't tell Banshee nor Emma Frost that one, she was drunk, and two, the reason why he freaked out because she was trying to kiss him. Now she does appear and she does apologize to him, but we're kind of getting the idea of the possibility of these two characters getting together. But also for Chambers, he kind of feels like there's no way Paige would actually be with him, because he looks like a monster. But the thing is, Paige wants to be with him. And so again, we're kind of seeing the idea of these two characters becoming a couple. Now, we also see that Jubilee was watching over both Husk and also Chambers while they're having that conversation from her new room, her temporary room. But while watching over them, we come to find out her current roommate is also Monet. Now, these two characters, they don't get along. But for Jubilee, she realized that Monet is looking at some kind of book. Now, for Monet, she does not want to show Jubilee at all what she's looking at. But for Jubilee, she has to know. And so she tries her best to pull the pages or the book out of Monet's hand. Unfortunately, it rips. And we come to find out it's a bunch of kids' drawings that seem very special to Monet. And Monet gets very upset with the idea that one, Jubilee now knows, and two, they got ripped. And so you have Monet grab the papers and fly out. And you have Husk walk into the room to tell Jubilee what she did was basically wrong. Now, I want to jump over to Skin and also Sync because you have the two characters at the moment building a treehouse for both Artie and also Leech. Now, for those two young characters, they have now officially joined the school, but it's Sync and Skin saying like they're still kids. They need somewhere to play at. So, hey, here's a treehouse for them. Now, with this conversation, we also learned that for Skin, he didn't have a good life growing up, that apparently he was always on the run. Him and his friends, they were trying their best to stay alive, but to also prevent the idea of burying one another. And so we're kind of left to wonder what kind of life Skin had growing up. But for right now, we have no idea. Now, back in Ireland, we see some random woman walk into the bar. And when she does, she asks to, use the phone. We do learn her name is Miss O'Brien, but apparently she has to use the phone to call someone, to call Mr. Cassidy, better known as Banshee. But now we have to transition over to Gateway. Now for Gateway, we don't know the actual reason why he's there to school just yet, but we do know here that he is the mentor for Monet. And so for Monet, she's kind of wondering like, how much longer do they have to stay there to school for? And also, when he's going to train her when it comes to her powers. Now, unfortunately for her, he does not give her any answers at all at the moment, but he does tell her like, come here, sit with me, and let's both meditate together. And they both do. Now, we kind of see that Banshee and Emma Frost are able to have a conversation with one another. And this conversation is really important because it begins the idea of the two characters feeling like they can go to one another. Because you have Emma Frost tell Banshee that she feels bad with the idea of not being more open when he needs somebody to talk to when it came to his nightmares. But it's also her kind of telling him that she feels bad for what she had did to Leech, because Leech is a young boy, but at the same time, she had no choice there. But while you have the two characters talking to one another, you didn't have Banshee be informed that he has a phone call. So he goes out of his way to answer the phone. And apparently that same one we saw earlier is calling Banshee to tell him that apparently his family castle had just disappeared. And we have no idea where it went to. And so this is where we're going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.